This is Popular Front, a podcast focused on the niche details of modern warfare and underreported conflict with me, Jake Hanrahan. Today we're speaking to Lucas Webber, the writer, researcher and founder of militantwire.com. We're going to be talking about the Russian Volunteer Corps, a far-right Russian but pro-Ukrainian militia that's been launching armed raids into Belgorod, a town on the Russian border with Ukraine. It's a very weird situation, it gets very messy, and there's a lot of misinformation out there. We're going to be going into what's actually happening. Support Popular Front at patreon.com/popularfront. So recently there's been a Russian volunteer unit that is pro-Ukraine. So they're from Russia, but they're fighting for Ukraine in the war. They have launched these raids into a border area called Belgorod, which is inside Russia. So essentially you've got Ukrainian or pro-Ukrainian militia kind of doing a miniature invasion of Russia in this small region. There have been gun battles. Several soldiers on the Russian side have been killed. It's pretty serious. This isn't the first time they've done it. I think they've done it twice or three times now. The whole situation is quite strange. The group that's doing this, the Russian Volunteer Corps, they are out and out open neo-Nazis. Now, obviously, that's not to say everyone in Ukraine is a Nazi. We know that's bullshit. That is Russian propaganda. Over 70% of 44 million people voted in a practicing Jew. So if Ukraine was a so-called Nazi junta, it would be the worst one that ever existed. However, there is a far-right issue amongst the armed groups there. That has been true for a long time. It's true in pretty much every country you could go to in Europe. I don't know why some people want to pretend that it's not happening, but at Popular Front, we do journalism, not PR. So we are going to go over this properly. Lucas, tell us, what the hell has been going on? Why is this, or a collection of unusual Russian but pro-Ukraine forces, why have they been raiding these border regions, and how did this all start?
Well, I'll start by saying Jake is one of the most pro-Ukrainian people I've met, and he's done a lot of great reporting from Ukraine, so there's no basis to attack. Anyway, so I think if I could, I'd like to give some history and context on how the war has increasingly spilled into Russia, then give some background Russian Volunteer Corps and how they kind of fit into Ukraine's broader strategy of cross-border air and ground attacks into Russian territory. So Russia faces a diverse range of threats, from cross-border sabotage, reconnaissance forces, domestic partisans such as BOAK and others, shelling and drone attacks. And some of the early signs of this one of the early major cases was the assassination of Daria Dugina. And this was a sign of things to come. And it followed with the attempted killing of Russian military journalists or propagandists, depending on your view. However, these global media tracking events were taking place within a greater context of Ukraine's cross-border strategy in expanding its operational reach into Ukraine and kind of making the Russian elite and political class and leadership feel vulnerable, as if Ukraine could reach out and touch them. And for months before the kind of big Russian Volunteer Corps and Russian Freedom Legion raids into Belgorod, Ukraine was launching drone attacks into Russia and was conducting cross-border reconnaissance, targeting, intel gathering, and sabotage operations inside Russia. And this became markedly more serious in December and January when there were 2 drone strikes on Engels Air Base deep inside Russia. And to give an idea, these are important strategic air bases as they house or station Russian strategic bombing assets that strike deep into Ukraine very often. And the first attack inside on Engels Air Base was actually coordinated with an on-the-ground reconnaissance team that collected targeting information. It damaged 3 planes, which is quite significant, killed 3 Russian servicemen, and wounded at least 4 others. Ukraine hit this airbase again in December, and this kind of caused panic because Russian leadership realized how quickly Ukraine's capacity to strike inside Russia was developing. And this is kind of a summary of the drone attacks from the air, but overland, these drone attacks were supported, and Ukraine was sending an increasing amount of reconnaissance and sabotage teams to damage rail lines, disrupt Russian military logistics, and they even hit with a drone attack inside Belarus, I believe. And Ukraine's military intelligence chief, Budanov, was interviewed after the airbase attacks, and he was kind of hesitant to admit to his involvement in it or Kiev sanctioning it. However, he said that these attacks, he was pleased to see these attacks essentially, and that they were going to continue to take place deeper and deeper into Russian territory, and they would become more and more serious over time. So shortly after this, the Russian Volunteer Corps began to really emerge as a significant threat and growing threat to Russia. And the Russian Volunteer Corps, as you mentioned, it's a hard-right paramilitary formation with overt neo-Nazi sympathies. And you can see this in their internal communications, such as in the White Powder Telegram channel, which RVC's leader owns. Now, RVC is made up of Russian nationals and probably fighters from other countries. For instance, we saw the emergence of a Polish version of RVC recently, which was participated in the Belgorod activities. So it seems RVC was actually formed in August 2022, but it was in March 2023 when they really started to emerge in the global media consciousness and in political consciousness around the world, and people started to find out to them or about them. However, it was nothing compared to the extent they're known today. So in Bryansk, which is where things really kicked off, it's kind of important to examine since it started to bolster the group's image, and it grew their following online, and it really put them on the map. So in early March, RVC launched a deadly armed incursion into Bryansk, where they entered Russian territory, and the group recorded at least 2 videos threatening the Kremlin and calling upon sympathetic Russian citizens or disaffected Russian citizens to rise up and take up arms against the government and join RVC's cause. Now, after the attack went on and they got their videos in and released, the attack kind of melted away across the border. But interestingly, RVC's leader, Denis Nikitin, provided some interesting details in an interview with the Financial Times. And at this time, people were questioning what is their connection to Kiev and Ukraine's military apparatus. And in the interview, he admitted that the operation he admitted overtly, explicitly, that the operation was supported by the Ukrainian government. And he was essentially saying, how do you think we are able to pull off such an operation without the support of Ukraine's military apparatus? And he said the purpose of the incursion or cross-border raid was purpose to expose Russia's border security weaknesses and vulnerabilities, embarrass the Kremlin. And he also notably claimed that his fighters linked up with domestic Russian partisans who participated in the operation. So the attack undoubtedly between the military aspect and the media propaganda aspect boosted RVC's profile, and the organization's Telegram channels really grew, perhaps by thousands of followers quite quickly. And after this, RVC made at least one more incursion and released a video of them kind of interacting with villagers inside Russia. It didn't seem they did any fighting. But this was kind of the end of their initial phase. And then from there, it seems that they kind of started to regroup and plan, probably in coordination, definitely in coordination with the Ukrainian government, the upcoming and on precedent Belgorod raids.
Right, and before we go into the raids into Belgorod, let's talk a little bit about the leader of the RVC. You mentioned him there, Denis. Well, I know him as Denis Kapustin, right? He's got two different names. I think that is his real name is Denis Kapustin, and then he is also known as Denis Nikitin, right? Yeah. So this is from what I understand, he's originally from Russia, ended up moving to Germany with his family, I think around kind of teenage years, and he became a neo-Nazi football hooligan, of which there were plenty in those regions, and now he eventually, he went back to Russia and started White Rex, kind of far right MMA clothing brand / lifestyle culture brand, and now he's suddenly in Ukraine. Tell us about this guy. Like, what credentials does he have? What more do we know about him?
Well, it seems interesting. I read one report where they said he was involved in the kind of hooligan scene, but he was never really into football or soccer.
Kind of a lot of hooligans, like a lot of football hooligans. It's more of a society, it's more of a fraternity, as opposed to like, oh, they really love the football. I mean, that one, I know I've read that as well. And it's like, yeah, that's not very unusual, to be honest.
Yeah, and as you said, he kind of built a reputation in the MMA scene. It was like which is something, if you look across these ultra-nationalist European or even ultra Telegram channels, they always post photos of like MMA competitions with guys wearing Nazi symbols and other far-right symbols tattooed on all over them. So they have like quite a circuit going on. He made his name in this space. And it also seems that he was he eventually moved to Ukraine, I believe around 2018, and he had some involvement with Azov. And this is kind of where his links probably to the military and the government started to grow. And there's not like too much information more than what you've said and on him. You can do a deep dive and find out more, I'm sure. But it seems that he was kind of Russian Volunteer Corps was kind of formed out of Russian dissidents that were already in Ukraine, and he was the leader. And he another important thing to note about him is that ultra channels, like, he's seen as a hero to them. So there's been I sent you an image, I believe, or I posted on Twitter, and they call him the hero of the white race. And so he's kind of like this charismatic figurehead that they're operationally in their media and propaganda pumping up as like a heralded leader. And he has been giving press conferences after the raid to large amounts of journalists, which could be problematic given his ideologies and his kind of whitewashing him or normalizing him. And essentially, like, he's the leader head, and he's the one who's appearing in all of the videos, and he's very active on Telegram, and you can see lots of support for him growing in these kind of hard right, pro-Ukraine channels. And there's like kind of another thing too, is it's interesting that he's a Russian national, and we can see a split in terms of hard right, whether they're like hard right monarchists like the Russian imperial movement, or they're neo-Nazi groups like Rusich, and then we have on the other side Russian Volunteer Corps and some others that are still domestically in Russia. So he is an important figurehead to the Russian nationalist kind of column on the pro-Ukrainian side, and he's probably the most prominent figurehead at this point.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that. For any kind of pro-Russian invasion people that think it's good that children are murdered and towns are destroyed, because what about NATO? Those people should check out our episode 164. It's called "The Fascist Militias Sent to Ukraine." So a vast majority of militias that Russia has sent into Ukraine on behalf of Russia to kill people in Ukraine, to invade, many of them are fascist, far right, and also openly neo-Nazis. So this idea that the Donetsk People's Republic is some kind of like left utopia or something is like hilarious. Listen to that episode 164.
Yeah, and another interesting thing that I found when I was monitoring the hard invasion, groups like the Russian Imperial Movement and their militant wing, the Russian Imperial Legion, who are fighting in Ukraine, they kind of took advantage of this to call the Russian forces traitors of their people and their faith. And then we saw Rusich express its dismay with the Russian government for not being able to control the situation. So he has really polarized these two spheres as a kind of charismatic, prominent figurehead, rising figurehead, as we just discussed.
Yeah. So tell us about the raids into Belgorod. When did they begin?
Yeah, so they began in they officially began on early May 22nd, and a couple days before this happened, RVC's leader appeared in a video posted by on their Telegram, and he was kind of portending what was going to happen. So he appeared and he started threatening the Russian government, and then it cut to a group of what they said were domestic partisans waiting inside Russia, and RVC's leader said that there are a number of these people present inside Russia waiting for instructions. And this is interesting because he mentioned this in the I believe it was the Financial Times interview after the Bryansk raid, that they had partisans inside Russia. So it kind of shows that one of their goals is to incite some kind of insurrection, or at least recruit from inside Russia. So essentially, this video said, we are about to launch an attack that will make every previous cross-border incursion look like a warm-up. And on May 22nd, using armored vehicles and Western provided weaponry, the group was able to move at an unprecedented pace because of this kind of this force they could bring to bear. And actually, in the context of this, too, to show how it fits into their strategy, in the days leading up to this attack, there was a number of sabotage operations against railways inside Russia and occupied Ukraine. And one of these attacks was in Bryansk itself, and it derailed a train with 60 cars, rail cars. And we also saw around this time a very strong surge of drone attacks. The Kremlin was hit, and just all across the borders, there was just massive amounts of hits, and there was even hits deep inside Russia. There was also another assassination attempt against a Russian military writer. So the Belgorod operation was the kind of climax of this swarm of activity by Ukraine. And it also came amidst a Washington Post report about how Zelensky wanted to really take the gloves off and launch more aggressive and major attacks inside Russia. So RVC, the Freedom of Russia Legion, they were able to quickly overrun border security forces and perform a deep drive into Russian territory. And they claim to have occupied multiple towns or settlements while they were battling out with security forces. And there's videos coming out showing just a big, massive armored column rolling through Russia. And this lasted for, I believe it was over a day, and it was quite intense fight. And the question came again, what is their tie to Kiev and the Ukrainian military apparatus? Well, War Noir kind of weapons analysis for us at Militant Wire, and he showed that their weapons undoubtedly are Western supplied to Ukraine, and we can all see that the armored vehicles they use were provided by the West. So I think now it is definite. There's enough evidence now, and even though Kiev tries to kind of deny it, they're not even taking it seriously. The denials are just going through the motions.
What do you make of that? Some people online are saying, well, who cares if neo-Nazis are given this equipment because they're going on kind of suicide missions? I mean, none of them have actually died during these missions, but that's what people are saying. They're kind of like, who cares? There's a war on, which I do understand. Like, very strange alliances have to be made. I'm not at war. My country isn't being invaded, and I know if it was, I don't think I would give a shit who is fighting back. But I am not on the front line right now, and neither are the people that say all this stuff. And in the long run, I mean, extremist groups that the West has done, it's famously never really worked out very well. I don't think ever. I don't know. What's your thought on it?
Yeah, well, it could always blow up in your face and be like that. The brave. This one's dedicated to the brave Mujahideen of Afghanistan. So, I mean, the war will end someday, and I think there's a danger in normalizing and whitewashing these groups, even if they're great fighters. Maybe they have to be put to use, but we don't have to whitewash them or celebrate them or make memes, ironic memes about them. So I think there is a very danger or a problem in whitewashing and normalizing these groups given their ideologies. And someday this war will end, and some of these people, maybe lots of them, will still be around, and they're going to be battle hardened. They're going to be have deeper ties to Ukrainian far right militants, and maybe Polish far-right militants, as we've seen with the new Polish group that has come up. So these are going to be extremely experienced, battle-hardened, and capable forces that may be sitting idle one day and they could become, there could be blowback from this.
Yeah, and it's all very well people sat at home making funny memes about the Russian Volunteer Corps and their incursions into Belgorod. But one of the main commanders said that Anders Breivik was a great guy, the Norway mass killer. He shot 77 people, killed 77 people, basically because he's a far right lunatic. Many of those people were kids. So when people are out there making their like lol, funny, ironic memes about RVC, I mean, I think it's worth remembering that these are very fucked up people who agree with extremely dark ideas, and to just shrug it off as well, it's okay, like everybody's got to fight. There's more to it than that. There really is. It's not that simple. You can't just ignore it. You can't whitewash it. I agree. It's okay, of course. Yeah, I get it. Okay, you got to send whoever fights. You don't ask. I mean, I've been saying this for years. If a Nazi turns up to some old lady's village and helps her from getting bombed, she's not going to ask the ideology of the guy, and she's probably not going to give a shit because thank God she's still alive. But that doesn't mean that you then whitewash this group. It has to be said who these people are. We've done it on every side, and I don't get why it's suddenly a no-no to bring attention to it. Because if you don't bring attention to it, are you then to presume that everyone in Ukraine is like this and it's not worth bringing attention to? Absolutely not. The vast majority of people in Ukraine, if you say, well, this group are literally neo-Nazis that think Anders Breivik is a good guy, they're going to be like, right, that's fucking weird. Do you know what I mean? And I just think it's so dishonest for people to just act like, oh, well, it doesn't really matter. Like, okay, well, how about if there's jihadists, which there are jihadists fighting out there as well? The idea that that doesn't really matter, I doubt it. These people often will not have the same opinion if it's on another side. It's when it's the side they're winning for. We know about this. So, yeah. That's the ideology, and the group you just said about as well, there's now a Polish volunteer corps fighting alongside the Russian volunteer corps in Belgorod. They're also now confirmed neo-Nazis. They've been spraying swastikas and tanks. Despite the kind of outrageous argument that these groups just do this because they think that World War II and Nazi Germany was a good war machine. Utter nonsense. These are out and out long-time fascist hooligans, a lot of them. There are other anti-fascist hooligans also fighting out there. Popular Front, we've documented them a lot. But it is how it is. That's how wars happen, particularly in Eastern Europe. Now, I know that the recent incursions into Belgorod made a lot of news and were real serious. There were like pitched battles in the streets between the Russian Volunteer Corps and Russian forces inside Belgorod. It even got to a point, right, where the RVC was kind of looking to negotiate with the mayor of Belgorod. Also, Wagner was involved. What happened there?
Yeah, so they continued to, they launched a significant yet relatively or comparatively smaller but a very serious attack into Russia again. And it seems that it kind of seems that it caused a crisis because Putin actually in a kind of meeting with the military elites today, he said that if these attacks continue, Russia is going to, invade the north and create a buffer zone that will spread so far that these attacks cannot reach Russia. And there's been a lot of counterterrorism raids taking place against suspected Russian Volunteer Corps members, sleeper agents or suspects, essentially. Now, it also provided opportunity for Wagner and the Chechens to kind of capitalize on this. So each said that they were going to send their forces to Ukraine's border. And on the Chechen side, it was kind of to, show his solidarity with the Kremlin. Whereas on Prigozhin's side, it was just another chance to portray his group as the only force that is competent, and the regular Russian forces and border security forces are incompetent and lack the capability that Wagner has. So you're going to have to call upon us to put out this fire. And actually, it was reported today that Chechens were deployed to the border. So it seems they won out for their loyalty. And there were hostages POWs taken by RVC, and they've been releasing lots of videos showing it, and it was very bizarre, as you mentioned. We had white wrecks or like Russian Volunteer Corps, neo-Nazi sympathizers doing diplomacy with Belgorod's governor, and at one point, Belgorod's governor said he would come meet them, and then under pressure he didn't. And they were supposed to do a prisoner exchange. I'm not sure how that went, but this is getting back to our last point, where it's they're being legitimate. They're gaining legitimacy through these kind of diplomatic actions, and it's causing quite a panic, because I think that was the goal of all of this. Back when the first Belgorod attack happened, it was kind of to take media attention away from the loss of Bakhmut, which it really did. It was kind of smart. And then also it's to, as Nikitin said before, exploit Russian border security, embarrass the Kremlin, cause domestic panic, and perhaps draw forces away from other areas of the front and make them weaker in terms of manpower that can be exploited. But I'm not quite sure that last point is the case. So in some way, it was kind of also the prelude to Ukraine's actual large-scale offensive, because it was scoring these kind of temporary tactical media victories that was, highlighting Ukrainian operations rather than Russia just taking Bakhmut after a very months-long intense battle. So it is kind of creating a crisis inside the Kremlin, while also scoring media victories for Ukraine, although the optics of these groups doing it is not particularly good.
Yeah, no, it's a very strange situation. That said, weird things happen at war all the time, which makes it so fascinating. And this isn't any different to extremists being sent in to do various similar missions in many different wars across the Middle East, here, there, and everywhere. Strange alliances have to be made. But I think it's the role of reporters and writers like yourself to accurately call out and contextualize who these people are, instead of turning into cheerleaders and PR agents, which seems to be happening a fair bit with this war. But that's how it is. Popular Front will not be browbeaten by anybody on Twitter into conforming to a PR campaign, definitely not. And I know you lads are not doing that either at Militant Wire. I think your work on it has been excellent. Where can people catch up with your work and get in contact, send hate mail if they want, accuse you of all sorts?
Yeah, so you can call NAFO Article 5 on me at on Twitter at Lucas AD Webber, and you can find my outlet at militantwire.com and on Twitter at Militant Wire, and also follow my the other co-founders, Tom Lord and War Noir on Twitter too.
All right, mate. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks, man. That was Lucas Webber talking about the bizarre far-right Russian Volunteer Corps but pro-Ukrainian adventures in Belgorod. Strange situation. I'm sure plenty of people online will want to put a bomb in the post on the way to us, but that's what happened. That's the situation. That's how it really is. Do check out militantwire.com. Those lads are doing some really great work. I definitely rate them. If you like Popular Front, you will like Militant Wire. If you like what we're doing here at Popular Front and you want to see this continue, and you want extras, bonus episode, access to the community Discord, the Too Cool for J School series, all of that stuff, bonus video content as well, go to patreon.com/popularfront, or popularfront.co/support. Another way to support and look cool while doing it, go to www.popularfront.shop. You can get our merchandise there, t-shirts, badges, all sorts of stuff. Also, we have a Popular Front coffee blend available now. It's called Flight Risk and it's in collaboration with our friends at Grindcore House. If you go to grindcorehouse.com, you'll be able to buy a bag and the limited edition Popular Front Grindcore House mugs. Thank you to our sponsors, Grindcore House, a pair of independent coffee shops in Philadelphia, USA, one in South, one in West. You can find them on socials at Grindcore House. Also, thank you to Oracle Coffee Shop in Portland, Oregon, USA. They're an independent coffee business selling only fair trade products. See them at 3875 Southwest Bond Avenue 97239. Thank you to Propagandopolis, an outlet selling and writing about historical conflict propaganda from around the world. Buy prints at propagandopolis.com. Use a promo code PopularFront10 for 10% off. And thank you to a new sponsor today, Golden Bear Surplus, a limited run military surplus store in California with its heart in the right place. They don't fuck with all of that, oh, Rhodesia was cool nonsense. goldenbearsurplus.com, check them out. It's run by good people and they're selling some cool stuff. Interact with us online, watch our documentaries at youtube.com/popularfront, Instagram at popular.front, TikTok at popular.front, Twitter at popularfront_. And again, if you want to buy our merch, popularfront.shop. Music in this episode, the intro was by Home and the outro was by Sam Black. Go to samblackpf.com or look him up on Spotify, Sam Black PF. His music is up on there now. He's got a new release with Tiago Deason, the lad that worked on our Sinaloa Foot Soldier Cartel. Very good lad. Both of them very talented. Check that out. They got a project there. It's called Destructoid. If you look at Sam's page on the Spotify, you'll be able to see it there. Thank you to the high tier Patreons. They are Cameron Radley, Thomas Giuseppe, Jake Fuentes, Viola Forvel, Christian Bustamante, Victor Villa, Daniel Verdin, Margosha, Rohan Irvine, Ryan Barbadillo, VS, Brian R, Justin Katuna, Evan Pank, Bradley Hope, Wizard Actual, Benjamin Tupper, Chongus Bongwater, Siddhartha O, Cameron Collins, Matthew Diffley, Claire, Liana, Robert, Sean, Christianovich, NTHG, Ethan Zvik, Kefir, Peter Nybrayton, Gabriel K, Elisa Middlefire, David McManus, Tom Petrie, James Leons, Bradley Davies, No Dogs No Amsters, Brendan Crave, B, Dallas Dunn, LD50 Seattle the Band, Adam H, B Rambo, Larson 8669, Ivan Julien, Bjorn Kirsten, Diamondstein, Michael O'Connor, Jack Doherty, Nicholas Butter, JD, Jav, James Cully, Ethan, Fitzmadrid, Ed Coulthard, D San, Mike Barone, Liam Williams, DZA, Giorgio Arani, the Vegan Straight Edge Global Cabal, Amy R, Rubicon, Frank Austin, Amelia Me, Christina Ravetti, Freya Northman, Niba Noah, Andrew Hurley, Vida Provost, Brian McLaughlin, Tom Lochrin, Young Wasabi, Tony Bin, JL, Stephen Davila, Lawrence Abrahams, Peter McCormick from What Bitcoin Did, Christopher Martin, Ryan Sandercock, and Moritz Zumbul. Thank you all so much. Keeping this going, keeping it moving forward. Patreon.com/popularfront.